Hello all, my name is Emily, and what an interesting time it is to be alive. I know there's a ton of coronavirus, self-quarantine, isolation content out there. I think I've watched at least 10 videos about tips on how to work from home. I already did work from home, but it's nice to get some pointers every once in a while. I know some people are posting their own listicles of apocalyptic pandemic fiction, so I wanted to post a video of my own, but on happier topics. I made this video being partially inspired by Jean from Jean Bookish Thoughts. She posted a video called Books That Make Me Smile, and I was also inspired by this book, Light Magic for Dark Times by Lisa Marie Basile. So I decided to post my own video entitled Light Books for Dark Times. These books are generally more lighthearted and comedic. Some of them err on the more therapeutic side. So yeah, let's talk about some books. So my first recommendation is, of course, the inspiration for this video, Light Magic for Dark Times. If you're a practitioner of magic and you're looking for some therapeutic magic to help you through a crisis, this is the book. This book has spells dealing with a wide range of issues from grief and trauma to outside negativity. It even involves some shadow work, which is very vital for understanding and coping with darkness. This could be in yourself or in the world, and it's only when you work with darkness and understand it that you can actually move things toward the light. But I love this book's gentle and caring writing style. It was not judgmental in any way, and if you're in isolation and you need some way to manifest some more light in your life, this is the book for that. My next recommendation is William Shakespeare's Star Wars. This series is written by Ian Desher. The concept of this series is pretty straightforward. It takes the Star Wars films and converts them into Shakespeare plays. This is kind of perfect because Shakespeare plays were the progenitors of so many story tropes, and the Star Wars films are basically all tropes. It's so interesting to see the different choices Ian Desher made when he was adapting these characters into a Shakespearean format. R2-D2 has spoken lines, and he's sort of the omniscient fool character who appears in a lot of Shakespeare's plays. Emperor Palpatine has a lot of lines lifted straight from Hamlet. Han and Leia have a lot of scenes that are basically the love scenes in Romeo and Juliet. So I've read the 3 books based on the original Star Wars trilogy. So that's Verily A New Hope, The Empire Striketh Back, and The Jedi Doth Return. I still haven't read the books based on the prequel trilogy yet because I was hoping there would be audiobooks based on them. The audiobooks for the original trilogy are amazing. They got people who sound just like the original characters, and it plays out just like a radio drama. It's great. Unfortunately, I tweeted to the author of the series, and it seems like we're not gonna get audiobooks for the prequel trilogy, sad times. So if you want something amusing and nerdy, which appeals to your literary sensibilities, this is a great series for that. Next on my list is the Tiffany Aching series by Terry Pratchett. I will give the disclaimer that I've only read the first 2 books of this series. So the Tiffany Aching series is one of the sub-series of the big, massive Discworld. They're definitely that part of Discworld that gears towards younger audiences. So this series is about a girl called Tiffany who is learning how to be a witch, and she goes on many adventures with a group of Pixies. So the Picts were originally a Celtic group of people who resided in Scotland, and the Pixies are basically these tiny fae people who look like Pictish people. Basically they're blue, or I guess they have blue tattoos on them, and they speak with very heavy Scottish accents. The series is a lot of fun, especially if you listen on audiobook. So if you're looking for a light-hearted fantasy and maybe you're looking for something a little more YA, I highly recommend this. Next up is Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Brosh. Hyperbole and a Half is basically Ali Brosh's blog / comic strip. Various entries from that have been compiled into a book. And in this comic compilation, Ali Brosh tells stories of anecdotes from her life, slices of her life as a dog owner. At one point she even talks about her depression and her experiences living with depression and her take on those experiences. You could argue this is veering more into darker territory, but she deals with it in an amazing, humorous way. And also I would argue part of dealing with dark times is actually learning how to confront that darkness and being able to combat it with humor. In any case, this book got me through some really tough periods of my life. It was one of the things that helped me deal with really dark periods of my life with a sense of humor. And with our current times, I cannot recommend this book more. And next up, of course, I have to recommend a Jane Austen book. This time round, I think I'm going to recommend Emma. You may know of Emma because of the new film that has just come out. I do recommend the film, by the way. It's a pretty reasonable adaptation. But Emma is basically about a girl called Emma Woodhouse, and she loves to play matchmaker with the people around her. She likes to take people on as her own personal projects, but over time this starts to backfire on her, and that causes her to reassess her own life. Of all Jane Austen's books, I think this is one of the more humorous ones. It has all kinds of shenanigans and missed communications. I've actually not read this book in a while, so I think I should reread it at some point. But yes, this is definitely a book I recommend if you're looking for a good, lighthearted classic. Next on my list is the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. This series is about a boy called Charlie who is openly gay, and he meets up with another boy at his school called Nick, who is a rugby player. They strike up a really strong friendship, which maybe turns into more. So the artwork for this graphic novel series is done in black and white, but it still feels very expressive. The way Alice Oseman illustrates thought and feelings and revelations is really unique, surprisingly so. And of course this comic is very good with representation of race and sexual orientation. I think I actually read the first two Heartstopper volumes in about a couple hours in foils, so they're very light and easy to get through, but they will also give you a lot of warm feels which you may be needing in this period. I think there's actually a third volume out now, which I plan to read soon. Next up is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. So if you've read Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, this is the fan fiction that the main character is writing, basically. Really, it's a spin on Harry Potter and a lot of the tropes of Harry Potter. The main character, Simon, is the Harry Potter foil. He is the alleged chosen one, and he has a rivalry with his roommate Baz, who he thinks is a vampire. This is also a great LGBT romance, and despite being based on Harry Potter, it does some really interesting twists with the different fantastical elements. So it's really funny and warm, but it also does a really amazing twist with the chosen one trope. This is another fantasy that I recommend if you're looking for something that doesn't have stakes that are too dire, but still has some really great fantastical elements. Next up, I'm recommending Odd and the Frost Giants by Neil Gaiman. I included this in my February wrap-up. This is about a boy called Odd, who is from a village of Norsemen. He strikes out on his own when winter seems to be very prolonged and the people in his village start to have a lot of tensions among each other. And in doing so, he has something of a divine encounter, and he finds himself in the middle of a very famous Norse myth. So this book is geared towards more of a middle grade audience, but I love pretty much any fictional portrayal of the Norse gods. Personally, I think Norse gods should be in more fiction. And of course, I have a strong connection to the Norse gods, so I am heavily biased here. So if you're looking for a book with some mythological elements, this is a good, light, and charming book. As usual, Neil Gaiman really knows his mythological fiction. Next up is the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy by Jenny Han. This is about a girl called Lara Jean Song. She is from a mixed Korean Caucasian family. When she has a crush on a boy, she writes a letter to the boy but then never sends it. But one day, all the letters get sent out and she has to deal with the fallout of that. I am not usually one for contemporary romance, like I'm really not. I will make an exception for this series. This is a very cute series. I get so annoyed usually by people who are very twee, but I love Lara Jean's tweeness and how she tries to make everything around her aesthetically pleasing. I really love that. And of course, I really love the mixed family representation in this book. It's great. I don't know if I should hold off on spoilers because there are 2 Netflix movies out and I don't know, I feel like a lot of people have already seen them. I've enjoyed those adaptations as well. I think I've watched the first movie twice. But yeah, this was very surprising for me because I usually don't like contemporary romance, but nonetheless, I love this contemporary romance. Lastly, I'd like to recommend literally anything by David Sedaris. I have here his book Calypso, which I think is his most recent publication. So David Sedaris is a comedic essayist, and he writes the most amazing, funny essays about his life. Somehow he just takes slices of his life and makes them so funny, but also so insightful. I've also seen him read twice, and it was amazing. If you can, read his books on audiobook, because his comedic timing is just on point. I think another favorite of mine is Naked, and of course Me Talk Pretty One Day. But if you want some outright laughter in your life, I highly recommend just pick up any David Sedaris book. If the last parts of my video felt a bit rushed, I apologize. I am racing the battery life on my camera. It is dying. So thank you for watching. If you like content like this, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Happy belated spring equinox if you observe. You can follow me on Twitter and Goodreads and Instagram, and I will see you in my next video.